Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to be talking about something today that I think is on a lot of parents' minds.
Hmm.
How to raise kids
Yes.
with a strong faith in a world that sometimes feels like it's going in a totally different direction.
Yeah, that's such a relevant question
You
and
know,
a tough one.
it is tough.
And you've given us a great place to start with this article. How can Christian parents train godly children in a secular world? And it really is
Yeah.
a deep dive into how we can be intentional
Yeah.
about cultivating faith.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure too,
Hmm.
you know, to get this right,
Oh, yeah.
to make sure that our kids grow up with that foundation.
Absolutely. And the article actually addresses that straight away.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it uses Proverbs 22.6.
Okay.
Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's not about guaranteeing our kids never stray. It's
Right.
about the power of those early influences.
Mhm.
I mean, even just from a secular psychology standpoint, you know, the things that we learn and experience as children shape us,
That's
shape our values and our behaviors later on.
Yeah, I still remember my dad.
Yeah.
You know, anytime anybody was on the side of the road broken down,
Hmm.
flat tire, he always stopped and helped. And it totally shaped
Yeah.
how I think about helping others now.
That's a great example of how this little everyday things
Yeah.
speak volumes.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another point that the article makes. Children are both a blessing
Right.
and a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
Psalm 127.3 describes them as a heritage from the Lord.
Right.
It made me think about how we talk about, inheriting valuables,
Yeah.
things we're meant to cherish and care for.
Right. It's not just about keeping them fed and entertained.
Right.
But sometimes I think parents might fall into that trap of thinking like, well, I'm praying for them.
Yeah.
So God's got this whole faith thing covered, right?
Right. And the article really pushes back on that.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Ephesians 6.4 talks about bringing them up in the nurture and instruction of the Lord. And that
Yeah.
requires active involvement from us. It's
Yeah.
not just about sitting back and expecting a miracle.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional about weaving faith into their lives.
So it's not enough to just talk the talk. We got to walk the walk.
Exactly. Kids are incredibly perceptive.
They are.
They pick up on those inconsistencies
Oh, yeah.
between what we say and what we do.
For sure.
Deuteronomy 6.67 talks about, really imprinting these commandments on our hearts,
Right.
making them a visible part of our homes,
Yeah.
Living out our faith authentically so that our kids see it in action.
I see.
It's like how they learn language.
Yeah.
They don't just study grammar rules.
Right.
They absorb it from constantly hearing and
Yeah.
seeing it used.
You know, that reminds me of something my grandma used to always say.
Oh, yeah.
What you do speaks so loudly, I can hardly hear what you're saying.
That's so true. And the article actually uses this example,
Okay.
talking about the danger of hypocrisy.
Okay.
Gives this example of a parent telling their child to lie for them on the phone
Oh.
and then getting upset when the child lies later.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
But, yeah, it really makes you realize how important consistency is,
absolutely.
even in those little moments.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've got to be mindful of that. And speaking of what our kids are exposed to, the article also dives into the role of the outside world.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's be real.
Right.
There's a lot out there
There's a lot.
that could pull our kids in a different direction.
Yeah, and that's where Proverbs 29.15 comes in.
Okay.
A child left to himself disgraces his mother. It might sound harsh,
A little bit.
but it's a reminder that neglecting guidance and correction can have serious consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Today's world, kids are bombarded with messages from social media,
Oh, yeah.
TV, video games. It's a constant stream of influence.
It's true.
And not all of it aligns with the values we want to instill.
So how do we even begin to counteract that? It feels like a losing battle sometimes.
The article doesn't give a simple answer, and honestly, there isn't one.
Right.
But it does emphasize that we can't just be passive.
Right. We'll have to dig into that more.
Yeah.
But for now, I think that's a great place to pause
Yeah.
and come back fresh
Okay.
in part 2.
I'm ready.
All right. See you soon.
See ya.
Welcome back. We left off talking about all those influences pulling at our kids.
Yeah.
It's
Especially in this digital age, right?
Yeah.
It's a jungle out there.
That-
But the
that's-
article doesn't just leave us hanging with that feeling of the world's against us,
Yeah.
It goes on to talk about how we can create a home environment
Okay.
that actually fosters spiritual growth.
So it's not about sheltering kids completely. It's about,
Yeah. Making our homes a kind of safe haven.
yeah.
That's the idea. And it talks about how faith should be something that we live out loud in our homes.
Okay.
Not just
Yeah.
a set of rules that we dust off on Sundays.
Right.
It even encourages parents to be vulnerable with their kids
Oh, wow.
about their own faith journey, their own doubts and questions.
So it's not about projecting this perfect image of we have all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about being real.
Being authentic. Yeah, because think about it.
Yeah.
If we're constantly pretending,
Right.
kids are going to pick up on that.
Mm.
And it might make them think that faith is about being flawless.
Yeah.
Which is
Not the message.
definitely not the message we want to send.
Yeah. It's more about being authentic and modeling that it's okay to wrestle with these things.
Yeah, just like figuring things out as we go.
Yeah. Mm.
And it even talks about how sharing those struggles can actually help our kids process their own,
Oh.
doubts and questions. It creates this space where faith is something to be explored,
Right.
not just blindly accepted.
It's like we're all on this journey together,
Yes.
and we're figuring it out.
Figuring it out as we go.
I like that figuring things out as we go. It's not about having all the answers,
Right.
but about being open to learning and growing.
Mm-hmm.
And one way that the article suggests we do that is through storytelling,
Oh, I love that. Stories are such a powerful way
aren't they?
to connect and to learn.
Absolutely. And the Bible is full of
It is.
incredible stories that can capture kids' imagination.
Oh, yeah.
Think about David and Goliath.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a classic underdog story
It's a classic.
that teaches about courage and facing your fears,
Right?
even when the odds seem impossible.
Oh, I remember being totally captivated by that story
Me too.
as a kid.
Yeah, and it's not just about the stories themselves,
Right.
but the conversations that they spark.
Yes. You can read a story like that and then ask your kids,
Yeah.
what would you have done in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
Or how can we be more like David in our own lives?
Yeah, connecting those ancient stories
Yes.
to their modern day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just Bible stories, right?
Right.
Mhm.
What about sharing stories from our own lives?
Mm-hmm.
Times we've seen God working or
Yes.
times when our faith has been tested.
I think that's so valuable.
Oh,
It makes faith less of an abstract concept
Yeah.
and more of a lived reality.
And it shows them that they too can have these types of experiences,
Yeah.
these moments where
Where God shows up
God shows up.
in a powerful way.
Yeah,
It's about passing down that legacy of faith,
I love that.
not just as a set of rules,
Right.
but as a vibrant part of who we are.
So we've got storytelling.
Yeah.
We've got being open and honest about our own faith journeys.
Mm.
What else does the article suggest we can do to create that faith-filled
Yes.
environment at home?
Well, it talks about the importance of incorporating faith
Okay.
into our everyday routines and conversations.
So not just special occasions or
Yeah.
designated faith time,
Mm-mm.
but weaving it into the fabric of our
Yes.
daily lives.
It gives the example of like a child coming home upset because a friend was mean to them,
Okay.
and instead of just offering comfort,
Yeah.
we can use that moment to talk about forgiveness
Right.
and how Jesus taught us to love our enemies.
It's like finding those teachable moments
Yes.
and connecting them back to our faith.
Exactly. Making faith relevant to their lives.
Yeah.
Not just something we talk about in a vacuum.
Okay, so we've talked about how to create that faith-filled atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
at home, but the article also talks about equipping our kids for the world outside of those walls.
And it does. And it uses this really powerful analogy of children as arrows.
Arrows. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so think about an archer
Okay.
carefully crafting an arrow, making sure it's straight and true
Mm-hmm.
so that when it's released, it flies straight and hits its mark.
So our kids are the arrows.
Exactly. Our role as parents is to help shape those arrows,
Okay.
equipping them with the knowledge, the skills,
Right.
and the values that they need to navigate the world and fulfill their purpose.
That's such a cool image.
Yeah.
But we don't just hold on to those arrows forever, right?
Right.
At some point, we have to let them fly.
We do, and that can be the hardest part,
It is.
letting go. But the article emphasizes that, if we've done our job well,
Mm-hmm.
if we've instilled in them a strong foundation of faith,
Right.
they'll be ready to soar.
Yeah, I love that it's about trusting that We've given them what they need to make their own choices, to face their own challenges, and ultimately make their own mark on the world.
It takes a lot of trust, doesn't it?
It does.
Both in them and in God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reading this article and having this conversation, it makes me realize that raising kids with a strong faith, it's not about having this foolproof formula.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
No, it's more about being intentional, being present, and relying on God's guidance every step of the way.
And remembering that we don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that's so important. We need each other.
Yes.
We need to be able to share our struggles,
Absolutely.
our triumphs, to offer support and encouragement.
It takes a village, right?
It does, and sometimes it takes seeking wisdom from those who have walked this path before us, pastors, mentors, even therapists if needed.
Absolutely.
Right? There's no shame in asking for help
No.
when we need it.
Not at all.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive, and I am feeling really inspired by all the practical tips and thought-provoking ideas we've unpacked.
Me too. And there's a couple more gems in this article that I think will resonate.
Okay.
One thing that really struck me was the emphasis on prayer.
Prayer is such a fundamental part of faith.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes as parents, we get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget to make it a priority.
It's true.
Or we overcomplicate it, thinking it has to be this formal, eloquent thing.
The article actually encourages us to keep it simple when it comes to praying for our kids. Just talk to God like you would a friend.
Okay.
Sharing your heart, your hopes, your concerns.
So just being real with God about what we're feeling, not trying to...
No sugarcoating.
Sugarcoat things,
And it goes on to say that it's just as important to pray with our children.
I love that.
Even if they're young.
Yeah.
It helps them understand that prayer is about having this open and honest dialogue with God.
Right. It's about inviting them into that relationship and showing them that God is someone they can talk to about anything.
Exactly. And it's not just about asking for things either.
Right. It's about listening.
It's about listening.
Being still and creating space.
Yes.
To hear God's voice.
That is so crucial. We live in a world that is constantly demanding our attention. And it's easy to bring that same frantic energy into our prayer lives.
Rushing through it.
Yeah, checking it off the to-do list.
Yeah.
But the article reminds us that prayer is about connecting with God on a deeper level.
Right.
Quieting our minds and our hearts so that we can be open
Right.
to his guidance.
And that's something we can model for our kids. That prayer isn't just about getting what we want. It's about surrendering to God's will.
Yes.
About seeking his wisdom.
I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do as parents is to equip our children to hear God's voice.
Yeah.
For themselves.
Because ultimately it's that relationship with God that's going to sustain them through the ups and downs of life.
And speaking of navigating those ups and downs, the article makes this really important point about remembering that raising godly children is a long game. Oh, tell me about it. There are days when I feel like I'm taking one step forward and 2 steps back.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's about being consistent, being faithful, and trusting that God is working in their hearts even when we can't see it.
And it's about accepting that we can't control our kids' choices.
No.
Right. We can guide them. We can point them in the right direction. But ultimately, it's up to them to decide what path they'll take.
That's where surrender comes in.
Yeah.
Releasing our kids to God, trusting that he loves them even more than we do.
Right.
And that he has a plan for their lives.
That's something I've really had to wrestle with. As my kids have gotten older, wanting to protect them from making mistakes.
Yeah.
From getting hurt.
Of course.
But realizing that sometimes those challenges are what shape them. What help them grow.
It's tough, but it's part of the process. And, the article makes this beautiful point.
About how even when our kids make choices that we don't agree with, even when they stray from the path we hope they would take God's love for them, never changes.
That's such a comforting thought.
Isn't it?
It really is. It takes the pressure off us as parents to be perfect, to have all the answers.
We're all on this journey together, learning and growing alongside our children.
And that's where community becomes so vital.
Oh, absolutely. We need other parents who get it.
Yes.
Who can offer support and encouragement.
Yes. A listening ear and a good dose of reality.
Right. And the article reminds us that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
To reach out to mentors, pastors, even therapists if needed.
Mm.
There's no shame in admitting we need support.
As we wrap up this conversation, I just want to encourage all the parents who are listening. You're doing an incredible job.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it is so rewarding.
It truly is. And just think, you are shaping the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
You're raising up world changers. People who will make a difference in their families, their communities,
Yeah.
and the world.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is.
So keep pressing on, keep praying, keep loving those kids fiercely.
Yes.
And remember that God is with you every step of the way.
And before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought from the article.
Okay.
If you could give your child one piece of unshakable spiritual wisdom to carry with them throughout life, what would it be?
That is a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
Let it marinate. Maybe even journal about it and see what comes up.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a privilege to explore this topic with you.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep the faith.